Peace and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot for you as we are back live and in color tonight. Let's talk about how do we celebrate Juneteenth. It's been a week now since the federal holiday, but I got some questions and some things to bring up as we talk about the next year of celebrating Juneteenth. We'll have that conversation. Also, we're going to be checking in with Dr. Jason Nichols to give us the latest on what happened now 1 year after that historic Roe v. Wade decision about banning abortion. We'll have that. And we got Reclaim Your Wellness with our very own Dr. Bridget, MD. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome. I'm so excited. Welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We are broadcasting live right now. Of course, I'm checking in from the great city of Los Angeles, California. Folks, I am so excited and very, very grateful and thankful to be back with you this afternoon to talk about the conversations that people are having. So big shout out to my culture crew. So many of you have been checking in and being a part of the discussion, have been continuing to support us as we've been making some changes behind the scenes. But I'm very, very excited about today's show. So first and foremost, I want to say once again, thank you for your ongoing support for the culture and, of course, the Black Star Network. And let's get ready to rock and roll because I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, folks, let's do it. First and foremost, the big conversation that I wanted to have is about Juneteenth. Now, last weekend, I had the great great opportunity to go back home to my hometown of Baltimore, Maryland, and to participate in the AFRAM festivities, which is a yearly celebration of Black arts, Black culture, and of course, to celebrate. It happened on Father's Day weekend, so we celebrated Black fathers. And of course, it happened on the same weekend of Juneteenth, which was last weekend. So it was a lot to come together. A beautiful, beautiful demonstration. Black folks from all across the city of Baltimore came out. But as I was there, folks, I have to say, while I was there and I was happy to be there, one thing kept coming up into my mind, like, how do we celebrate Juneteenth? How do we celebrate? Now, here's the thing. I know some people say, oh, that's a week ago, so we've moved on. Not quite. Here's why I say we should really have a conversation about celebrating Juneteenth, because this will set the precedent for a new holiday that the President Biden has officially put into has designated as a federal holiday, right? Of course, some states have still not assigned Juneteenth as a statewide holiday. So some states are still trying to catch up to the president. But in regards, even though all of that is happening, I think it's important for us to understand that this is a holiday. And I was trying to do my research, so y'all crew, tell me if I'm wrong about this. But I think the last major Black holiday was when Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday was assigned to be a federal holiday, a national holiday. That was back in 1983. 17 years later, in the year 2000, that's when all the states across the country had pretty much observed Dr. King's birthday as a statewide holiday. So we're talking about 83. It was first designated by the president, and then 2000. That's when we started to see it. So other than that holiday, so we're talking about what, 40 years ago, we had a major Black holiday. And so this is why this conversation is coming up in my head and my thinking, because I was thinking, like, how do we make sure that this doesn't just become another holiday where we see Black folks coming together? I've heard that there were parties for Juneteenth. I heard there were cookouts for Juneteenth. There were certainly concerts for Juneteenth. But does it get to the point or does the message come across as saying, hey, this is not just any regular holiday. This is a historic moment in Black history, in American history. So I wanted to bring this discussion to you as my culture crew, because I wanted to get your take on this. How do we celebrate this? How do we celebrate this? Are we having the conversations about what has happened, like that part of our history? Are we discussing that, especially with the next generation who may not be privy to understanding, well, why are we celebrating Juneteenth? What is Juneteenth? Because guess what? Every Black person is not informed. Every Black person don't know or is well educated about this. So how do we celebrate this as a major Black holiday outside of the parties, outside of the cookouts and all of those things? And I mean, look, let's keep it real, y'all. Can I keep it 100? I'm going to keep it real with y'all. We do that every holiday. When is there a holiday, especially a holiday during the summer, where Black folks and folks don't gather together? Folks don't, quote unquote, have a cookout if it's during the summer months. When is there a holiday where we don't eat? How much of the holiday do we actually spend in observing what the meaning of that holiday is truly about? I'm just asking a question. I'm just throwing it out there because I think it's important, especially now. We have talked about this tremendously, about the attack on Black history, about the attack on Black curriculum, about the attack on our story, right? But then at the same time, when there is an opportunity to put our story out there, at the same time, when there is an opportunity for us to do something a little different than what we have been doing for the past 40 years, right? How do we go about doing that? Now, for Dr. King's Day, I know that we do a number of things. There are prayer breakfasts, there are community service organizations out there. There are opportunities. Of course, we talk about the great legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. For the Kwanzaa holiday celebration, for that 1 week period at the last week of the year, we do certain rituals. We go through certain traditions. We do the gatherings, all of those things. So it made me think, like, how do we distinguish Juneteenth as a holiday, not just in terms of just knowing that, it took that over 2 years for our people in Texas to realize that, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and that essentially that those who were enslaved are free. But it's got to be something more than that. It's got to be something more than that. And I want us to jump on this conversation now, so that way come next year, all of our efforts in celebrating the holiday is an effort to empower, to make us feel good about our Blackness. Now, I want y'all to join me in the conversation. Post your thoughts on YouTube as we're streaming live right now. Of course, we're streaming live on Amazon News, and of course, you can find us at blackstarnetwork.com. But folks, how do we celebrate Juneteenth? How do we go about making sure that this holiday isn't like the rest of them, that history is being told, that people are coming together to do something great, and that America truly understands the importance, the value of Black people? I want to get your thoughts. Post your comments. We got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to hear from you, crew. Share with me your thoughts on this, and let's have this conversation. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of A Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. All right, so the first conversation I wanted to have, even though it's been a week since Juneteenth, and this week I'm going to be talking a little bit more about Juneteenth, but something that really stood out for me during last week's celebration of this new federal holiday is that we really don't have any quote-unquote guidelines on how to celebrate the holiday. Now, some of you might be thinking to yourself, well, why do we need guidelines? Because I don't want this brand new holiday that we have all kind of embraced. I don't want it to be a situation where it's just the same old demonstration. You have a cookout, you have a music concert. I've heard Juneteenth parties. Y'all remember Boondocks? This came to mind last week. Y'all remember the Boondocks? This is the black cartoon that was created by Aaron McGruder. Big shout out to Aaron McGruder. But remember that episode of the Boondocks where they talked about that Dr. King actually lived through his, all these years up to the present day, what that would look like, what that would sound like. It was satirical because there was like Dr. King parties and all of these things. And he woke up from his coma and he went to this world and he was shocked to see how everything had unfolded after all the years that he worked. And then he kind of came out of this coma. And even though it was like really, really funny, it was like really thought provoking because it made me think about the fact that when we get special days or when we have designated days, especially when you get like a national holiday, how do we get the most out of it? That's the big thing. How do you get the most out of the celebration so it doesn't become like, oh, it's Juneteenth, let's just pull out the red, black, and green flag and have a cookout. Because we can't pass on cookouts to our children, folks. There has to be something bigger, another legacy that we can pass on. I'm all cool with the concerts and stuff, but even then, this is a huge part of our history. You're talking about all of these black folks down in the state of Texas who did not know that they had that there was this law that was signed where they can go free. So do you celebrate that with a party? I mean, technically you could have maybe. Or do you celebrate that with the fact that we are still, and even in this present moment, folks, that some states still don't acknowledge Juneteenth as a major holiday, and that we're in a time period where our story is under attack. Our history is under attack. All right, folks, let me get to you because I've been waiting to talk to you, crew. All right, let me jump in. Tiana, I think you made an excellent point. You said we definitely shouldn't be celebrating Juneteenth with a Juneteenth squad car like they did in Aurora, Illinois. Right, no squad car. That was terrible. That was terrible. And look, man, look, I saw people like commercializing this whole thing, right? And if we get, and I'm saying we as Black folks in this country, if we start to say, yes, I would love to see that. Remember, we talked about Juneteenth ice cream. Next thing you know, they're gonna be like, hey, for Juneteenth, come down and get yourself a brand new black car. like this stuff can't be commercialized. Is there anything sacred about our history that we can hold on to and most importantly pass on to? So pass on to our children. So Tiana, to your point, that was a major, major fail. Look at that. Look at that. That's the Juneteenth card. What is this? I mean, seriously, what is it? This is our history, folks. This isn't a circus act. This is our history. We should not be allowing this, and the people in Aurora should be just like upset that this is the demonstration by the police. This is not a celebration of Black people. This right here, I don't know what the hell that is. But we're seeing this stuff, folks. And if we don't, let me just tell y'all something. As important as history, and we talk about it on this network, not just on this show, but if we don't get a grasp around our story and our history and telling it and enforcing it the way we want it to be told and enforced, guess what? Someone else is going to do it for us. All right, let me go here. Here we go. See, now check in. You said, right, Boondocks was everything. Hey, Boondocks was everything. Big shout out to you. Thank you for checking in, Janelle. It's good to hear from you. Monkey Confessions, you said the colors are red, blue, and white. Excuse me, red, blue, and white. Absolutely. You Monkey Confessions, you're talking about the Juneteenth color. But guess what, bro? Guess what? How many of us saw the red, black, and green flags on Juneteenth? Raise your hand. Just raise your hand. I see you. I did. I saw the Black Liberation flag. And see, this is why I think it's important. And I know in the midst of reparations, in the conversation around Monkey Confessions, I appreciate you for bringing that colors up. But in the midst of reparations, in the midst of all of this talk about Black culture, stuff gets thrown in. And at some point in this country, we got to tell America, look, there is a reason that you have Dr. King, where we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King. We have Black History Month, which is, in 28 days, we try to cover as much history, but more importantly, talking about the relevant contributions of Black people in this country and making this country a little bit better, just a tad bit better, right? Now we got Juneteenth, which is the celebration of this announcement to our people who were enslaved down in Texas. But at the end of the day, folks, there has to be a distinction. And it can't just be all mushed together and say, okay, Dr. King, red, black, and green. Black History Month, red, black, and green. We got Juneteenth, red, black, and green, red, white, and blue. Some of our people still don't even know the history behind Juneteenth. Some of our people still don't understand why we're even celebrating Juneteenth. Some of our people don't even care about Juneteenth. So we have some work to do. Tiana, you also checked in and said we should be reuniting with family. I agree. But what do we tell our family? Are we having story time? Who's the griot of the family that's going to be able to connect the family to the struggle of Black people? How do we have those conversations? Because we could just be like, oh, yeah, I told a couple of people in my family about Juneteenth. But at the end of the day, that's a big historical moment. Appreciate you, Tiana, for checking in. Here it is. Corinna, you said shout out to the architect of Black Star Network, a.k.a. Mr. Roland Martin, for starting the annual Juneteenth Festival in 2024. Yep, big shout out. So if we're talking about having festivals and doing other things, we got to make sure that there's history and culture. I don't know if y'all went to any events, as we close this part of the discussion out, if y'all went to any events where there was African drumming, if there was great storytelling about our people, like certain things that should be included in these celebratory spaces, so that way we understand that there is still a connection. And more importantly, at the end of all of those things, right, The big thing is the call to action. How do we set a call to action? Now, maybe this is a plan and an idea and a vision for next year, that we do have a Juneteenth coalition or a group of folks, whether it's scholars and historians and community folks, and all of these folks coming together and say, okay, here's some ideas on what Black people can do for Juneteenth. Here are some ideas that white America can do for Juneteenth. These are some things, because we want to make sure that this moment of our history is not just celebrated, but we are empowered from it. All right, there we go. Marcus Fit for Life, you said it was the federal government enforcement that made Juneteenth possible. Why should the government not be recognized as instrumental to the event? Well, it's not. Who said that it should not be recognized? We know that. President Biden was the president where this has become a federal holiday. So it should be recognized, but at the same time, we should know the history. Like, we should help people to connect the dots to understand why it's important for us to even have a moment to celebrate Juneteenth. Let me see very quickly, folks, as folks are checking in. Karen, you said every festival should have a historical booth. Promoting Black business is important. However, we must reflect on our ancestors who suffered and were never free. Absolutely. And then let me ask y'all, how many, as we close this out, did you go to those? Did they do libations at any of the events that you saw? Where and the libation ceremony is where they call out the ancestors and we send a prayer up to the ancestors to thank them for their sacrifice. Was that a part of our Juneteenth celebrations? Outside of the music and the partying and all of those things, was that a part of it? Culturally, when we talked about these celebrations, did we play the same music that we often criticize? Because that's what I heard at some Juneteenth celebrations. We playing music that destroyed the image of Black people, Black families, Black women, Black boys. We got to do something different. Even if it's just for a 24-hour period, we got to do something different. All right, let me try to get one more in before we take our next pause very quickly, folks. Pretty Brown Mimi 726, good to hear from you, Pretty Brown Mimi. You said Galveston, Texas has a museum. Let's look to Texas. They've been celebrating Juneteenth the longest. They have the historical information. Well, why not look at Texas? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. But then also Texas is an enemy of our history right now with Governor Abbott and the stuff that he's doing against diversity and Black history, right? But we should look down to the scholars in Texas, right? Like we got Dr. Gerald Horn down in Texas. We're going to talk to him, God willing, very soon. So when you got this opportunity, let's not play games with it. We have a major, major opportunity before us where we can redefine, and most importantly, we can tell our story the way we want it to be told. And Juneteenth is a perfect time for us to do that. So folks, I just throwing it out there. How do we celebrate Juneteenth? Let's start with history. Let's start with reconnecting ourselves to the struggle. Let's start with having conversations among our family and friends about the current challenges that are facing Black history and Black curriculum. Let's start with us having redefined conversations about, you know, where do we go from here? Let's start really celebrating the fact that we have made some gains. That was a huge gain at that time, but we still have some work to do. All right, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. We're going to talk about 1 year after Roe v. Wade. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Jason Nichols and get his take as we talk about this pro-abortion, anti-abortion debate that is raging in the country. So stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, let's go into the second conversation that we have for you, which is around that historic day of abortion, that historic moment about the issue of abortion. Y'all remember that major decision that was rendered by the Supreme Court against Roe v. Wade, the very case that would allow the constitutional right to abortion nationwide. Well, it was over this past weekend, 1 year ago, that major decision was made by the conservative court. Y'all remember that? 1 year after Roe, without Roe, excuse me. And as a result of that, there was a lot of conversation about the autonomy of a woman's body, sexual health, reproductive rights. There was a lot of conversation about legal issues. This is what one of the CNN article here talks about, that this whole decision created a huge frenzy of legal actions. And guess what? It's just getting started. It's just the tip of the iceberg. More and more states are becoming very, very, what can I say? Some states are anti, some states are pro-abortion. But where we were a year ago to where we are now has changed dramatically. And guess what? Social scientists and other folks who are watching the trend of this debate says that more change is on the horizon. I want to bring my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols from the University of Maryland. He's a lecturer for the African American Studies Department. Always happy to have him. But I want to talk to my brother, and I'm good to see him back in action right here. There he is. My man, Brother Jason. Brother Jason, first and foremost, good to see you, bro. How you feel?
Hey, man, I'm blessed, man. I'm feeling good. How you?
I'm good, man. We back on it, and so I'm really, really good. I want to get your take on this, though, bro. If we look at this abortion, this was 1 year ago. America went up in arms. I remember that day when it was announced, and it just seems like people were just rushing to the streets. Women were just like, oh, hell no. You know what I mean? It was just a very, very, very different day in this country. Well, we're 1 year later, we're still seeing that there are a number of states who have adopted more stringent, abortion guidelines. Some have even said that it's all out banned in some states. What do you make of this latest about where we are with this conversation?
Well, I think one of the things from a political standpoint is we saw how powerful it was in 2022 in those elections and in those midterm elections. It was the second highest, according to the polls, the second most important issue to voters at 27%. I think the first was inflation. So I think Democrats had an opportunity to go and make sure that they protect a woman's right to do what she wants with her body. I think that they failed at that. And one of the things that we're seeing is this was the Democrats' opportunity to have a culture war issue that could motivate middle-class people in the suburbs, working-class people, and others. Family planning was a really big issue. And yet now we're seeing that the Republican strategy is to use the courts, not to use public opinion, because public opinion right now, 69% of Americans believe an abortion should be legal within the first trimester of pregnancy. That's a record high, 69%. And we saw what happened in red states like Kansas. We saw what happened with the referendum in Michigan. We see what's probably going to happen in Ohio. We saw what happened in Wisconsin. Those are key states that Republicans and Democrats are going to need a year and a half from now. What is important is we see that this issue also 70% of OBGYNs say this has made it harder for them to protect women's lives and women's health, that these stringent laws. So Democrats really, really should be on the stump talking about this as an issue. Instead, they've let the Republicans flip this and talk about and put this in the courts rather than in a place where they would need to have to pay in terms of having an electoral record of voting against a woman's right to choose her own healthcare decisions.
Right.
So put it before the courts, and now what they've done is put this trans issue at the top. You know what I mean? And they know that the transgender things and children transitioning, which is so rare, but they put that ahead, and they know a lot of people don't like it, and a lot of people aren't with it. And so they flipped the culture war and made sure that they avoid talking about abortion. So I think it's important for Democrats to really put that out there. We need to really make a decision about how we're going to protect the organizations that protect women's health, including Planned Parenthood. By the way, Planned Parenthood is how a lot of poor women get breast exams, get pap smears. They say only 3% of their services are abortions. They're literally protecting women's health, and they're trying to cut that when women oftentimes don't have options for how to get health care, how to get protection through a pregnancy so that they have healthy pregnancies. And I'll just say this one last thing, and that is the states that have the most stringent laws on abortion also have the highest maternal death and the highest infant mortality. So maybe I understand pro-life people. I'm gonna just put it out there. I understand the argument. I take them at face value that they don't want to control women's bodies, that the goal is they really believe that life starts at conception. If you believe that, why not start by protecting the living? Why not start by protecting women who are giving birth? Why not start by protecting children up into the age of 1 when we know, and just to bring it all home, who leads in both of those categories, infant mortality and maternal death? Black folks.
Right.
They have no answers for that. They don't want to talk about that. That's not the issue. But yet, abortion is. And there was a woman at a Trump rally who said, "Thank you, President Trump, for protecting white life." I don't think that was a slip of the tongue. I think she said what she meant to say.
So if we're in this place, and I see it, and I'm looking at the stats, I don't know, Keenan, if we can pull the stats from that CNN article, but there were only, before Dobbs on May 3rd, 2022, there were 3 states that had gestational limits. Then when the Dobbs decision dropped on June 24th of last year, there were 12 states that don't have abortion access. 1 state had a gestational limit. Then after the midterms of last year, November 15, 2022, 14 states don't have abortion access. 4 states have gestational limits. And then now, 1 year later, on June 24th, 2023, 14 states don't have abortion access. 6 states have gestational limits. So there seems to be some ups and downs. There's like some mixed reaction to the situation. Do you think it is possible or is this just idealistic thinking that the majority of states will be on board for this?
The majority of states will want to put gestation limits.
Yes.
I think, the country is split. I think you're going to get, you're not going to get that in California. You're not going to get that through. You're not going to get it through in New York. You're not going to get it through in Maryland. You're not going to get it through in those kinds of states. But could it get to a point where some of these battleground states where this goes through? It is possible. This is why that election for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin was so important. I think it's very possible that you could get those kinds of laws passed through in a vast majority of those red states, particularly in the middle of the country. Some of them had trigger laws just in case it happened the next day. It was already going to happen. And I think you're going to get those kinds of controls put in there in a lot of states. I don't think all of them, unless Republicans win back the White House, win the Senate, and keep the House. Then you could, get a President DeSantis, and you will get a national abortion ban or a 6-week gestational limit, which is basically a ban because a lot of people don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. And it makes people these 6-week limits, which, by the way, they call that a heartbeat. They call that a fetal heartbeat bill. By the way, you're not a fetus until 8 weeks. So it's not even a fetus. And you don't have a fully formed heart at 6 weeks. So that the name is a misnomer. You know what I mean? But you're going to get that nationwide if people don't wake up and stop saying Biden's too old. I don't like Biden. Yeah, he's not my favorite guy in the world either. You know what I mean? I didn't want that guy. I wanted the older old guy. But at the end of the day, like, look, sometimes you have to hold your nose and cast your ballot. And we have to recognize that if we want to protect women's health care and women having the opportunity to protect their health, protect their decisions, and certainly we need to shift the focus and make sure the focus is on family planning. I can tell you, number one, and just I'm gonna get, I'm already black, but I'm gonna get even blacker right here. I believe in black people having families. I tell black men all the time, get married. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, get married and fight for your family. And then get married, stay married, and have babies. And I say that openly because I believe that when a society is designed to get rid of you, kill you, incarcerate you, limit your birth by incarceration and all the things that they do, one act of resistance is to build a family and to have babies and to have a wife and to make a strong black family. I'm all about that, but I still believe women should be able to make decisions about their own bodies and their own health care. And that's where I think Democrats need to put that out there. You got a guy who's been held liable for sexual assault who's sitting there talking about he wants to put limits. And then you got another guy down there in Florida who can't pronounce his own name, who sits there and wants to put limits and may even go as far as a full-on abortion ban.
Right.
We need to actually wake up and recognize, yes, Biden can't talk. Yes, he trips sometimes, but he's the firewall. He's the firewall that we have. The Senate, the firewall that we have. Voting for your congressman as they're trying to gerrymander every black district. We see what's happening in Louisiana. We see what's happening in Alabama. They are literally, and we saw what happened in Florida. They are literally trying to take black people's vote and dilute them. We have to be aware of this. Don't fall for the trickery and I don't like Biden because he's old, or I don't like Biden because of what he said in 1973. Look, he's the firewall for all of this. And we also need to push him to talk about things like maternal health. I know Vice President Harris has talked about it, but to make action based on those things.
Absolutely. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more with Dr. Jason Nichols as we talk about 1 year after Roe v. Wade. Folks, I want to get your take on this. Post your comments in YouTube as we're streaming live on there. Continue to tune in to blackstarnetwork.com and, of course, on Amazon News. And let's continue the discussion about what happens with this conversation about abortion in America. Stay with us. More conversation here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about abortion 1 year after that historic decision made by the Supreme Court to end the constitutional right for abortions nationwide. This is the Dobbs decision now that's being framed as the Dobbs decision. This is 1 year after Roe v. Wade was uprooted, where that was 50 years of that decision taking precedence. Now, we're in a new space when it comes to this discussion about everything from maternal health, everything from reproductive rights for women, and more importantly, how women make choices about their bodies. We've been checking in with my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols from the University of Maryland, a lecturer at the African American Studies Department. And Doc, I want to bring you back into the frame because the conversation about family, about everything you said is our crew is talking about. Folks are got a lot of questions. So I'm going to jump right into those questions and share some of those comments with folks. Tiana checked in and said, Black women are being harmed the most. You talked about this, that when it comes to maternal health, infant mortality, Black women are at the center of that situation. And it's even sadder because we're only about 13% of the nation's population, but we are the highest group of people that suffer from those conditions of maternal health and infant mortality. So Black women are at the center of this conversation around abortion.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. Black women and, certainly are the people who are most affected. And again, it goes across class lines. Can't even make this a class argument because Serena Williams nearly died during childbirth. She's arguably the greatest tennis player that ever played the game, bar none. And she's wealthy and she's famous. And guess what? When she was giving birth, they ignored her. And if there's anyone who knows their body, it's an athlete. And they sat there and they ignored her and she nearly died. So it's important. Think about if Serena Williams can't get the right health care, that it almost cost her life. Think about a working class Black woman. Think about a working class Black woman with a Black sounding name. Takeshas and Takithas and Shamikas. What's going to happen to them when they're in that kind of setting? And their lives matter every bit as much as a wealthy woman, a famous athlete, a movie star, and yet a lot of them are dying. And we need to bring that to the forefront of the conversation. And we brothers need to bring that because these are our wives, these are our girlfriends, these are our sisters and our mothers in some cases. And we definitely need to stand up. And again, I understand that I don't like Biden. He's old. We need to push Biden because you're not going to get that protection from the other side. I'm with the other side every single day, 5 days a week anyway, on primetime news. They don't care. I'm telling you.
So that brings up a couple of other questions, bro. One is, what is the role of men in this whole conversation, right? Because depending on and this is one of those individualistic things, I think, bro. Depending on the man that you're talking to, he might be for or against it. Now, we know in our community, as a part of our culture as Black men, if we out here in the streets running and ripping and dealing with this one sister, and dealing with another sister, and dealing with another sister, and then this sister pops up pregnant, this sister pops up pregnant, the first thing is we're going to either say it's not mine, or you need to figure that shit out. You know what I mean? It's like you figure that out with the abortion. And brothers are running, and I'm not throwing shade on all of, and of course this is not all Black men, obviously. But I'm saying that part of the culture is still prevalent. If it's not with older brothers, it's with younger brothers. So how do you think Black men can be a part of this? Like, how do we make sure that since this situation affects Black women the most, they are the most harmed by the policies and procedures, that we stand in support of them? Do we need to educate ourselves? Do we need to be on the front lines? Do we need to how do we support?
It's funny. This is the argument that I was making, and I know I'm gonna get some hate for this, but I remember when the infamous slap happened with Will Smith.
Right.
There were people there who were like, Will Smith protected a Black woman. I'm like, that's not protecting a Black woman. She was in no danger. You want to protect Black women, stand up and make it known that Black women are dying during childbirth. That's protecting Black women. You know what I mean? Protecting Black women is not being the toughest guy down the street. It can be, but in most cases, that's not what it is. Protecting Black women is standing up for their health. Also, protecting them financially through marriage so that you don't have children out of wedlock. And I'm not judging anybody for ripping and running because I done did my dirt, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because there's some sister who's watching this like, what? This, you know what I mean? This guy? So listen, I'm not necessarily judging that, but we do need to we older brothers, we need to create a culture of saying, nah, you wife this woman. You have a family. That's what manhood is. That's what protecting Black women is.
And here, let's throw in that caveat though, bro. Even if you don't want to have a family with this woman, be present every step of the way.
Absolutely.
Of the pregnancy. and y'all and ladies, y'all tell me if I'm completely wrong. I think that some abortion decisions, women decide to get abortions not necessarily just because of their socioeconomic status, but because that black man that they lay down with, that man that they lay down with is not there. So they don't want to go through the trouble of raising a child by themselves. I think that's part of the decision making. I could be completely wrong.
Right.
But I think that that's a part of the decision making, that for some of these women, they're like, look, you want me to carry these 18, 21 years and you're not present, bro. I'm not doing this by myself. That if more men did step up, they would probably be like, okay, we can do this. At least there would be some modicum of a family being established. But I think a lot of that comes down to that part of the decision.
Listen, Farajii, I'll tell you right now, if you're a deadbeat dad like me and my crew, you can't hang with us. Like, we don't,
right. Come on, man.
Like, we will shun you. We don't want nothing to do with you. We don't want to hear the excuses. Like, it's one thing financially, but if you're not trying to be present, I understand not having money. I get that. But if you're not trying to be present in your child's life, or if you make excuses, well, she don't let me see, or her mother don't, none of that. You got to try everything in order to be present in your children's lives. But like I said, if we are going to claim this, I hear this whole thing about black women. You and I talked about this. We were going to do a podcast based on this.
Right.
Right now, telling black women, submit. Are you prepared for leadership? And if you are prepared for leadership, then you need to step up and make relationships,
bro,
marry people, and then start a family. That's the way you can sit there and protect black women and protect black children.
Hey, real quick. Hey, look, man, you about to why you open up this can, man? Why you open up this can and having this conversation about brothers stepping up? All right, look, Pretty Brown Mimi, my sister, you said, Dr. Jason Nichols, I hope you encourage your men friends to marry us black women, black beautiful women. I'm just saying. Is that part of that process of building families as well? Absolutely.
I think, well, I'll tell you this. Marry who it is that you love and who you want to be with. I'm not going to sit there and say, you're wrong if you marry somebody who's not black. But I had a Muslim brother one time tell me, he was like, we can marry, he was talking about Islam, and he was like, we can marry Christians, we can marry Jews, but if we don't marry our own women, who's going to marry them? So I encourage people. And the truth is, black men and black women, we marry each other more than anybody else. We are the most likely to marry intra-racially. My thing is, we just need to get married more often, and we need to support each other, and we need to love each other, and we need to stop these gender wars online, and we need to recognize that it's a wholly different thing when a woman is given birth by herself. The way she is perceived, and I hate to say this, but a black woman is in there by herself giving birth, or just her mother's there, or just her, her girlfriends are around. The way she is perceived by the medical staff is very different than when there's a father there holding her hand, whether he's married or not.
That's a point, bro. I'm gonna stop the conversation right there because I want that to marinate. That's real. That is very, very real. She on the delivery table, and she got to make decisions about the insurance and who's responsible for what and all of this stuff. That's a huge point. Dr. Jason Nichols, man, I'm so happy to reconnect with you, bro. Thank you for coming back on to the show talking about this. We know that this is going to be an ongoing conversation, but I appreciate your insight today. Thank you, big bro.
Hey, thank you, brother. And listen, you need to come back east some point. Check me out, man. We need to get together.
We do need to get together. Maybe we could come over west, though. It's like 79, it's like 78 degrees in sunny Los Angeles right now. So I'm just saying, I heard it was raining and stuff in Baltimore. So
yeah.
My brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, who is a lecturer at the African American Studies Department at the University of Maryland. Thank you, bro. And truly appreciate you.
No doubt. Thank you.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, let's have a conversation As we continue to talk about health and well-being, we're going to be giving you this week's Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. So stay tuned for that discussion. And later on in the next hour, we got to talk about hip hop at 50 at the BET Awards. Did this thing last night. And my man Busta just kind of laid it down as a grown man in the culture should. So we definitely want to share with you a little bit of what he had to say. All right, stay with us, folks. We got a lot in the next hour. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, it is Monday, and now it is time for us to check in with our resident doctor, Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. Dr. Bridget, what's going on?
I haven't seen you forever, Farajii. It's good to see you.
First thing I know, it's awesome to see. I think that's you because your hair. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't have a conversation with no sister if she made a major change without first acknowledging the change.
Yes. I've been told it's hot girl summer, so I'm just trying to catch up.
Are you serious?
This is what people say to me. I'm only sharing what I've been told. So.
Oh well, okay, all right. You tapping into your inner Megan Thee Stallion. Got you. So Doc, I know speaking of the summer, you want to talk to us about a couple of things. It is getting hot across the country. Yes. It is expected to be a very, very humid, sticky, just hazy, hot summer, especially with global warming and everything else that's happening in the environment. How do we beat the heat of this whole situation, Doc?
Absolutely. So we have to consider the fact that this week, even about 14% of the population is going to have dangerous levels of heat this week. And as you were saying, with summer temperatures changing, getting hotter, more extreme over the last several decades, we're becoming in a more severe and severe situation. We talk about tornadoes and hurricanes, but extreme heat is actually the number one killer of people. And so we need to be very careful when we're talking about the summertime and enjoying, great weather, but it can actually get a little bit too hot and can lead to death. So it's something to discuss.
So what do we need to do different? Because I know that every time summer rolls around, there's always the conversation about, on extremely hot days, stay inside. Limit your outdoor activities, always stay hydrated. Has that changed now?
Well, I mean, to be quite honest, the message hasn't gotten out there enough. Most of the issues that happen around extreme heat are human caused, okay? Climate change, carbon, methane, what have you, greenhouse effect. 600 people are being killed on a daily basis in the US due to extreme measures on some level or another. And what we need to look out for are the dehydration, heat stroke, and heat exhaustion. Okay, so just starting with dehydration alone, it can be manageable, right? It's really making sure that you start drinking before you go out and that you make a point of getting about 8 ounces in every 15 to 20 minutes. Most people are not doing this, right? So we're talking about a 16-ounce bottle about every hour. Of course, if you drink too much, that can lower your sodium levels. If you go hitting about 48, 50 ounces, quickly, then it can actually lower your sodium levels and actually become a problem and cause more health issues. But we don't do enough to make sure that we're taking good care of ourselves in this way. Particularly elderly people don't get that signal to drink as easily as younger people do. So not only should we make sure that we're doing this for ourselves, drinking before we get started, if we're out in that extreme heat, having at least 8 ounces every 15 to 20 minutes, and continue to drink once you get inside, because you need to still catch up from what you were actually expelling from all the sweat when you were out. Okay, we see it every year with the Summer Olympics. Runners that are falling and becoming not only dehydrated, but leading into the next part of this, which is even heat exhaustion.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about, we got some fitness gurus out there. People love to they go hard in the paint with some level of extreme fitness, right? And I've seen people, and I'm sure you've seen it too, Doc. 99-degree weather, 95-degree weather, they trying to run 6 and 7 miles. Is this healthy?
If you have so we all live in different areas of the country, right? So whether it's our altitude or whether it's the heat that we're used to, it takes time for your body to adjust to heat as well as altitude. So if you're going to a new place, which is mentioning many times with those runners, with the Olympics or different sports, if you're not used to the environment, you are at higher risk. However, when you're talking about high heat, high 90s and above, as well as high humidity,
right,
you put yourself in a really dangerous place, because when that humidity gets high, our body our sweat factor, I'll say, does not adjust accordingly, and our inner body temperature ends up rising quickly, and that's what leads to heat strokes.
So it's like our body is overheating,
right?
And we don't from the inside. Right. Wow. Right. And Gatorade and water ain't enough.
If you can keep up with it. But keep in mind, it's not just adjusting and drinking water, but if you're on certain medications, beta blockers, some antidepressants, alcohol, you're not going to adjust fast enough. So you're putting yourself at even greater risk. So know what you're taking and have conversations with your doctor to see if you're at increased risk and what does that mean. I have some school teachers that they're on medication during the school year, and I take them off during the summer because they're less stressed. But many of them, what is considered hot weather is still during the school year, right? And they don't adjust as well. And I'm very conscious of how they're experiencing it because their body's not even always that used to the medication, let alone the heat.
Right, absolutely. Let me go to some of our crew members who are checking in, because some of them say, Doc, that they actually have done a lot of physical activity outside. Dejima, you checked in, you said Farajii, I did that yesterday. A lot of hikers were out in LA yesterday. Yeah. I mean, it's not super hot in LA right now. It's like in mid 70s or so. It's going to get up a little bit later on in the week, but it's not super hot. It's not humid. I remember living back in Baltimore, Doc. The humidity was like a whole different person. It was just an embodiment of heat that just smacked the hell out you when you walk outside. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. And so when I moved west, I was just like, man, I don't miss that humidity. I don't miss that, because even when I did a little time, and this is my man Keenan, in Chicago, I think Chicago got some of the most frantic weather in the country.
Yeah.
Chicago's weather is schizophrenic, y'all.
Yeah.
If y'all it's just like, hey.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with it, though. It is hard to keep up with Chicago weather. It's hard to keep up with Chicago weather because they're a rainy location. They're right on the water. They're hot. They get extreme cold. Like, they do a little bit of everything. I think a little bit faster than every place else, right? And so it is hard to keep up. And I'm not saying you can't get out there and enjoy that great weather, right? But you have to prepare ahead of time. You have to prepare while you're in it, and you have to continue after you're done. And also, and I want to make this clear, because I know I believe this for many years. Listen, Black people, you need to put on sunscreen. I know you think you don't, but you should. It does protect your body. It does keep you from drawing in some of that heat so quickly. And so I think we always kind of laughed and giggled that we didn't care about this. Black people do burn too. Okay. But if we cannot control our temperature, the using sunscreen can be incredibly helpful. Getting SPF 30 and above is really helpful to keep you in the right as far as protecting your skin. And I will tell you, as a physician, just keeping your skin looking healthy, avoiding aging, that melanin might help you. But I know when I have a patient come in, they might look glorious from, the head to, their shoulders, what have you. I can look at someone's hands and tell them how old they are, because we often do not make sure that we're getting anything protected on our hands, right? So protect your skin, like we are gifted and to have the melanin that keeps us looking young, but let's try to make sure that we're also keeping our bodies healthy in the process.
Let me get one more question along that same line, Doc, because I'm so happy that you brought that up. What if you are allergic to traditional sunscreen? Is there some alternative product that you could recommend?
I would have to put it in the chat a little bit later, because there are some more like zinc-based, more holistic aspects. I guess what's important for me to know is, what are you actually allergic to? But I do know there is some protective measures people use that are not, that people don't have allergies to.
Absolutely. All right, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more with our resident doctor, Dr. Bridget, MD, and she's breaking this down, talking about everything from beating the heat, and she's going to talk about this latest situation around Deion Sanders and his surgery around dealing with blood clots. So we'll have more conversation. But crew, I want to hear from you. Post your thoughts on our YouTube page as we're streaming live right now under Roland Martin. Share your thoughts, any thoughts about health and wellness, and we'll make sure that we bring those questions and those thoughts up to Dr. Bridget. Stay with us, folks. We got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation about reclaiming your wellness right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to Dr. Bridget Williams, MD, who for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment, let's bring in the new hairstyle doc back into the conversation.
You know, I do want to make one point, though, as far as the heat, that I want to make sure that this isn't just about hydration and, you know, keeping, you know, looking good, feeling good, you know, what have you. More Black people have heat-related stress deaths in New York specifically than I think any, like they did a study in 2011, 2021, and we have more heat-related deaths than anybody else. So we need to be that much more conscious of this. We need to look out for elderly people. This is not just about staying hydrated. Heat stroke is real. And I just want to make sure that beyond dehydration, if you're seeing someone who appears confused, they might even be passing out. Some will sweat a lot and others will not sweat at all because of the heat stroke. They're looking flushed, they're breathing rapidly, their heart is racing. People can have seizures from this as well. People can die from this as well. So I don't want this to be just about drink more water, this is where we start, but this is about saving lives as well. And I say this because my daughter experienced this. We went from, this is living in, I think, Cleveland at the time, and went down to Missouri. And the change in temperature was so incredibly dramatic. And even though I was pushing her to drink fluids, she wasn't keeping up fast enough. Kids experience this as far as the dehydration very quickly, like elderly people. And she went from trying to drink to passing out. It's a very real thing.
Damn.
So I want people to be aware of this, to take it seriously. If you are not used to the temperature, or you are used to the temperature, you need to at least start with hydration. Stay out of the most extreme periods of the daytime when it's the most hot. And if you're not feeling well, take it seriously. It can be a medical emergency.
All right, Doc. So you're bringing up some points here that I think that we all need to consider. Like, first, it sounds like we need to kind of like reorient our thinking around this. Like, we're still working from myths and fables in terms of Black people being affected by or not being affected by the heat, that we do have to embrace and come to terms with the fact that Black people are impacted by the heat. We're impacted by sun. We're impacted by humidity. We're impacted by the fact that as much as we are melanated, that we can become very sick during this time of year.
Yes.
That's a big mind change right there, Doc. How do we have that conversation in our households? What do you tell your patients?
I think at the end of the day that we got into the space that, like you said, we have melanin, we're protected, but we got into the space that we were almost immune to the sun, right? And so I think and I'm glad that you said in this way, because this is the point that I am trying to make. So I appreciate that how we've been thinking about this is not keeping us safe. Okay. We need to understand that we can get skin cancer. We can become incredibly dehydrated. We can get sun poisoning and heat stroke and heat exhaustion. And though we might be the most resilient of people, that we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and our people. Okay. That means loose fitting clothes as well. Being able to, we should be wearing hats and protecting our heads just like everybody else. Like, we need to look at this differently and realize that though we have great protection, we still need to protect it more.
All right, so Marcus Fit for Life checked in, Doc, and he asks, what about vitamin D deficiency in Black people?
Yeah, it's a problem. People, I feel like we weren't talking about this. Definitely, I feel like 10 years ago, we weren't really talking about this much.
Right.
That even though we don't always absorb as well as we should, and vitamin D is really something that you're getting from your body being activated by the sun. And so, just as culturally, not just Black people, but just American culture, we're not living outside the way we used to, right? We have indoor jobs. We spend time inside with television and different activities. We're not outdoorsy people like we had to be many years ago, right? So it takes longer for us to absorb the sunlight to create that vitamin D, and it can lead to numerous problems, including fatigue and achiness and heart issues. And so I find that even when I tell patients, look, your vitamin D is low, take, additional vitamin D. And I think we've had a conversation or so about this previously. I don't think patients, at least I don't think my Black patients take it as seriously as they should. But if I can correlate that between that might be why you're fatigued or have achiness or discomfort, sometimes they will take it a little bit more seriously. And it is something that we not only need to replenish in our body, it's hard to get in our diet, but we can get it in our diet. But we also need to request the testing as well, because I've seen that there are some insurance plans where it used to be kind of part of that complete panel you used to get with your people. Some of them are taking it off. So request your vitamin D levels.
Karen checked in and said, I wear Hawaiian Tropic or Neutrogena SPF 50 through 70 sunscreens. 50-70 sunscreen, excuse me. But how do you determine what sunscreen works best for you based on Karen's question?
Absolutely. So you should be getting above 30.
Okay.
There were some reports a couple years ago that anything above 50 really didn't do much more than the 50 itself, but you might be paying more. So look at what you're paying and determine if there's a big difference between the 50 and the 70. I wouldn't really go necessarily about the 50 itself. If it's the same price, then, more the merrier. But many times they're saying there's not a huge difference in the protection between the two, but definitely leave the 15 for somebody else. Definitely give 30 and above.
Okay. Let me take a look here. McCole made the point that a 66-year-old Black postal service carrier just died from a heat stroke while delivering mail in Texas last week. So let's talk about how do, for our folks and for our watchers who work outside, if they're doing work for the post office, if they're doing some other type of work, manual labor, how should they protect themselves during the heat?
Absolutely. So it goes back to that hydration. It goes back to what you're wearing, protecting, wearing a hat for protection, being able to get out of the heat when you can, and to cool your body off as much as you can as well. Postal workers they have a hard time because they are out there. Not only are they in the heat, but they're actually expected to move very quickly. Right. So they're not just, taking their time delivering mail, though it may appear that way to some at the time, it's a really strenuous job. So for them, they're more likely to just push through and try to get to the end of their route than taking the time to take care of themselves. They better have some hydration, some water, maybe even some with some electrolytes to replenish the salt in their body, and continue that hydration all day. If they don't feel well, get inside.
So you know what came to my mind, Doc, on that, that some of us, we see our postal worker, that we should offer them, you know, maybe a bottle of cold water, offer them a bottle of Gatorade, unopened bottle. Let me make this like a brand new unopened bottle. But yes, we should offer them that, right? My man, Vincent Morales, he works in the moving industry. He said that tip your movers, especially a lot of people moving during the summer months. So if you have movers coming in and out of your home, they going up and down steps from apartment to houses and all types of spaces, that you should tip your movers. Are we on the right track there in kind of like encouraging that?
Absolutely. So I think we've seen some of that on like TikToks or what have you. And I think it's considered a nice gesture. It is more than a nice gesture. Like, you are helping someone, you are keeping them in a safe place. So I would love to see more of that happen. You know, a lot of times you'll see one where they have chips and what have you. Give them the water, give them the Gatorade, and because it's going to keep them in a safe place.
All right, we got like 1 minute before we take our next pause, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Deion Sanders. But I want to get your take on Laura Davey said, this makes me so mad. They got elders who should be in retirement working during historical heat waves. How do we protect elders, and in particular, those who are not in retirement, those who have to go out into the heat?
Absolutely. So many times we ask people, would you like something to drink? Have you, here's a drink, do you want it? Make sure they drink it. This isn't because they don't necessarily get that same stimulus in their brain that they're thirsty the same way that younger people might. Right. And so their ability to control their internal thermostat can be out of whack very quickly. So push the fluids, I'll say it myself, they don't want to go back and forth to the bathroom for numerous reasons, but it's not about that, particularly in the highest heat, that this isn't about going to the bathroom. This is about, keeping your body in a healthy and safe place. And to be totally honest with you, if it's the highest heat, if it's highly humid as well, stay inside.
Oh, come on. We can't say that enough, because we got some heat gladiators out there, Doc.
Stay inside. What are you doing?
No. You're not a real man if you don't tug 100 bricks through 100 degrees up 100 with 100 steps. I'm just saying, there's some heat gladiators out there. Some people, they love that. And the crazy part is, we go to our next pause. The crazy part is, you got a lot of these young brothers and young sisters who are athletes, who are out there, and we are hearing more and more of those stories about heat strokes, heart attacks, dehydration, all of these things. Put your body to rest, because this is a culture where we always want to push our bodies to the limit to achieve some goal. And sometimes the best thing you can do to take care of your body is to be at rest. All right, look, really quickly, we got to take another pause. Doc, when you come back, we got to talk about Mr. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, how he is recovering from surgery related to some blood clots that has prohibited him sufficient blood flow to his toes. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk a little bit about this condition and certainly get our crew's take on that. Folks, stay with us. More Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, coming right back at you here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We are still talking about your health, your wellness for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. Let's bring Doc back into the frame as we talk about this other health story, which is related to Coach Prime Sanders, who is the coach, of course, of the University of Colorado football team, the head coach there. He underwent surgery on Friday, Doc, to address 2 blood clots in his legs that are prohibiting sufficient blood flow to his toes. And many people are just, waiting to see how he's going to recover from this. But what is this condition? What is happening here?
This is what kills me. I heard about this. Obviously, I thought it was worthy of us talking about it, right?
Right.
So I start looking into, venous clots and DVTs and, wanting to make sure that I share good information about it. And then I went back and started reading about Deion Sanders, okay, and some of the articles related to him. The fact of the matter is, this is a perfect example of why you don't trust the internet, okay? Because what you just described was someone who is having clots that led to amputation, right? These are not DVTs. These are not venous clots. These are arterial clots that are more related to lifestyle and cholesterol levels that are caking up his arteries, and not venous clots that actually end up breaking clots off and going up to your lungs. But everything that I was reading was confusing the two completely. And so where I was going in one direction with this conversation, I realized we need to start with what is the difference between an arterial clot and a venous clot, who's affected, and what can we do about it? Because again, I don't know what you're going to see on TV about it, but you do not get amputation from DVTs and venous clots. So I don't know if I caused more confusion, but I want to get deeper into that information. Does that make sense?
So let's do that. Yeah, let's do that, because, and there's the picture of Coach Prime there. He's recovering successfully. His longtime girlfriend, Tracy Edmonds, has been by his side. His family has been waiting for his recovery. They think he's going to, recover 100%. But how does it get to that point where you're talking about you're in danger of losing a limb? Is that because of food? Is that because of some medical condition that he possibly could have inherited from his family? How does it get to that point, Doc? Absolutely.
So an arterial clot has to usually do with a high-fat diet, smoking, alcohol, sometimes obesity or lack of activity. It can happen with diabetes and high blood pressure. Okay. So this is very much the same thing that might cause a heart attack, where you have your arteries that are kind of plaqued with cholesterol, basically. And some of that cholesterol cuts loose and then blocks an artery, and everything from on the other end of that artery or that capillary, what have you, loses its blood supply. Okay. So in his case, just like we talk about people's, their heart arteries getting caked with cholesterol, it can also go right down into your arterial system and go down into your legs. And if a clot breaks loose and occludes an artery or a vessel, everything on the other side of that vessel loses blood supply, which is why he lost his toe. And many times with a venous clot, it tends to be one side because of some sort of injury, lack of activity, what have you. Arterial, because it kind of builds up all along your arterial system, then it tends to often be both sides. I wouldn't say a clot often breaks off on both sides, but it can. And so one is something that is systemic that goes down your body, and the other one is something that starts usually at your lower leg and then moves up your body.
So Brittany Brown, Mimi 726, she checked in and she was saying, so Deion Sanders' issue lifestyle related and not football related.
It can come from an injury, and I believe he had a surgery that was something happens to his toe originally, and that the injury that led to occlusion of his vessels that led to the issue, but arterial is usually more of a lifestyle issue more than just injuries itself.
So it's more of a lifestyle issue.
It is more of a lifestyle issue. And so obviously I don't know his medical history. So I'm not going to assume anything in the course of it, but it was a little confusing to read the information and it not lining up. And so people, if you've heard of claudication, people that end up having great pain in their burning feeling in their legs, they can only walk for short periods of time. It's because the arteries are caked with cholesterol again. They end up losing hair in their legs become very shiny, feet are cold. Because that's what sort of just confused me when he was saying that he had no feeling in his foot. And I was like, well, what's that got to do with the DVT? That's not how this works, right? And so I started looking more, and that's what I started seeing here. So probably more lifestyle, not the lack of exercise in his case, right? But definitely probably related to just lifestyle issues, maybe high blood pressure, that and just having probably maybe a strong family history of cholesterol issues that might not have been treated well enough to be able to avoid this issue.
Damon, my brother Damon checked in and said he had turf toe during his career.
He had what? I'm sorry.
He had turf toe.
Right. So I do understand that there was some injury and that there was actually a complication from a surgery that led to him losing his toe, but there were other issues involved as well. But it's not venous clots. I'll tell you that.
So, I mean, what is the big thing that we can glean from this? Like, what lesson? Because, I mean, some of us may, Corinna, my sister, checked in and said she got blood clots started in her leg. 2 clots went to her lungs, and she needed a procedure called an EKO.
Yes.
She said, now when I travel, I keep my compression socks and low-dose aspirin.
That are venous clots. That's a DVT. That's where you have a clot that starts to develop in your lower leg, leading to swelling, sometimes redness. And if a clot breaks loose and it goes up through your system into your inferior vena cava, and it can go into your lungs, block off part of your lungs, you become short of breath and lose that aspect of your lungs and also die from that, right? Where what we're talking about with Deion is something that is more arterial and actually is traveling down the body. So no, she's right on track with what she's experienced and how she's treating it. But number one, I think I've become more and more aware of what is out there in the media and how it can be very confusing if you're just taking it at face value. So number one, if you're having any of these issues, then you should be seeing your doctor. If they're asking you to treat any of these issues, it can become very serious. And so you should actually look into these medications. I have a lot of patients that avoid taking cholesterol medication, and it can lead to bad things. So it's something to take seriously.
Absolutely. Look, I got to take another pause, Doc. When we come back, I want to get you your final remarks about this topic and then just kind of update us, because you've been kind of moving around the country. You've been doing all these different things. If you don't follow Dr. Bridget, you need to follow her on social media, Dr. Bridget MD. But she's doing a lot of things in the area of health and wellness, dealing in the area of cannabis, some of the latest in that situation, and a whole lot of other things. So, Doc, I want to give you an opportunity for you to talk about the things that you've been working on. Because somewhere along the line, a book, a movie, something's going to come up.
Yeah. To God's ears. We'll see.
Right, exactly. So we're going to have that part of the discussion. Folks, stay with us. We're talking to Dr. Bridget MD for Reclaim Your Wellness here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been checking in with Dr. Bridget Williams and Dee for our Reclaim Your Wellness, and she's just been breaking it down, talking about everything from how to beat the heat to dealing with these issues of blood clots, as we're seeing in Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, as he recovers with his family at home from a major surgery to remove some blood clots from his legs that prohibited him, that were going into his toes. So it was a big success. And big shout out to Coach Prime for his recovery. But Doc, I want to give you a few moments to just share with us some final thoughts around this, because there's still a lot of questions, not just about Deion Sanders, but just in terms of how the situation like this can get to this point. But I will say that Corinna, she said, I wish Dr. Bridget and I lived in the same state so she could be my doctor.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You need to move to Ohio to Florida.
Way
to California.
You know what? I'm in Florida right now. So
you're in Florida right now.
I'm in Florida right now. So I need to just get more licenses, right? More state licenses.
That's all. It's a small thing for a giant like yourself. Just give us about 40 more licenses.
Yeah, exactly.
But talk to us a little bit. What's the big thing you want us to take away from this Deion Sanders story?
Well, I think number one is to be careful what you're reading. Everything isn't clear. I just reviewed one more time about the injuries and the clots. He had surgery when you have that much cholesterol building up, sometimes you will have a surgery to kind of roto-rooter your arteries and get some of that out, right? And he did have injuries from football, but I think they're tying it all together and it doesn't really line up exactly. So without a doubt, football injuries, without a doubt, has some sort of arterial issue that led to clots, but they're not necessarily completely in alignment. So you just have to be careful about what you're reading, unfortunately. Yeah. And to keep in mind, I think if I want you to know anything, there are at least two different types of clots, because we could even go deeper, but they're not the same and they don't work the same. And they don't lead to the same things exactly, right? So if that was not something you were aware of before, you might be in a conversation with a friend and they're telling you about what's going on with them and you're sharing your story. You might not be talking about the same thing. Right. So we just want to kind of throw that out there, okay? Otherwise, I think we are hitting and going into the summer and more activity, and how important it is that we not only take care of ourselves, but that we look at ourselves differently, right? We have a narrative, and I grew up with it, you grew up with it, about what it is to be Black in America, what we deal with and what we don't deal with. And sometimes that changes and we learn more over time. And so it is really important for us to take care of our systems. It's important for us to take care of our hydration, of our art. Like we have to dig deeper if we want better results. And so I'm asking people to do a little bit more research and to dig a little bit deeper.
That's absolutely the truth. Now here, Doc, I know we got a couple of moments left. Want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the work that you're doing. Like, why are you down in Florida?
Well, honestly, I'm in Florida for my daughter's volleyball tournament. So
okay.
That's how I got down here.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. But there is a Black women's cannabis conference that was in Philadelphia. I was one of their speakers for that. I actually chose to do it virtually at the last minute, just so that I could be down here for my daughter. But what I really want to share is that you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. That cannabis as a medication is here. And if you don't know a lot about it, then we should. If your physicians don't know a lot about it, then shame on them. That it is something that people can utilize. You don't have to be high with it. There are numerous ways to have it into help different conditions without all the side effects that you might be getting from medications that you're not wanting to take or give you a lot of bad results in the course of it. And so a lot of the work that I do is about educating, about understanding the research, sharing it with others. And this is despite the fact that, as it goes across the country, it's been around maybe 20 years, but for many areas in the country, this is brand new. And so it's really a great opportunity as well to kind of delve in as far as careers and opportunities. And so the conference in Philadelphia over this weekend was really about how Black women are stepping into this role in all different aspects of it. And that even as women, we make 80% of the healthcare decisions in our homes for ourselves, our children, our spouses, our parents. And so we have the opportunity here to take this back, because culturally, this was always medicine for us, okay? And we have an opportunity to really get involved in this and really kind of, take the bull by its horns on this. Also,
very quickly, who was the organization? Which organization was behind this cannabis conference for Black women?
So it's called Cannabis Noir, and the head of it is Sheena Robertson. So definitely you'll find information about it on my page. And honestly, I was hoping to kind of bring her on here one day and just talk about what our roles are in this area and share what's going on.
No, I'll be open to it. Let's do it. Let's bring her on for Reclaim Your Wellness. Yeah. Let's talk to her about it. Just because, some folks will be like, well, why are you talking about cannabis? Because it's there. Like you said,
it's medicine.
The toothpaste is out of the tube. And so we should have some very relevant, significant conversations about the whole thing, from everything from using it to being a distributor to being a part of the industry in that regard. Like this is a part of our culture, folks.
Absolutely.
So this is something that we definitely need to discuss. But Doc, I know that you're already been on the front lines. You're in all these different spaces and everything. So we appreciate all of the guidance that you've been providing as a family doctor and of course as CEO of Green Harvest Health. So we truly appreciate it. What's your social? Give out your social so people can follow you, Doc.
Absolutely. You can always find me at Dr. Bridget MD, whether it's on social media or drbridgetmd.com, and find out everything that we're working on. And honestly, book 2, Courage in Cannabis, will be out soon. So we'll talk about that when it hits the shelves.
There it is. Yep, absolutely. And if you want to email you, can we throw out that new email address for you?
Absolutely. info@drbridgetmd.com.
There it is, folks. You can email Dr. Bridget your questions, your thoughts, your stories. Don't blow up her email, her inbox, but you can certainly email her to get some questions. If you didn't want to pose those questions on air, you can definitely reach out to her. Plus, Doc does an after chat on, after certain conversations. And so make sure y'all connect with her on her social media page to figure out when those after chats will happen and get your questions answered there as well. So big stuff. Oh yeah, she put a little post. Y'all see that one? Y'all see that right there in the corner?
We're
Yeah,
back.
she's like, we back. I put it on my story. There we go. I was like, yeah. Gotta bring Dr. Bridget back in. You know what I'm saying? So, Doc, we truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything. And God willing, we'll look forward to reconnecting with you next week.
Absolutely. It's great to see you, Farajii. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Folks, we got to take another quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about hip hop at 50, according to the BET Awards. Stay with us. That discussion is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture for the final piece of today's discussion. And it's been a fantastic show with Dr. Jason Nichols and Dr. Bridget Williams. We wanted to certainly acknowledge the fact that The Culture was on stage live and in living color last night for the BET Awards as they celebrated the 50th anniversary of hip hop culture. And folks, y'all know this whole show is coming out of that space of hip hop culture. But one of the big moments of yesterday's festivities was the fact that Busta Rhymes, who has been on the scene for years, for 30 years, check this out, for like 30 years he's been on the scene as he was a member of the former group Leaders of a New School, breaking out of that as a solo artist to do his own thing. But for 30 years, he was given the Lifetime Achievement Award for his role in hip-hop music and hip-hop culture. And one of the big things that he pointed out during his acceptance speech, a 13-minute speech that they normally would allow only a couple of minutes for him to say, not because it's a Lifetime Achievement Awards, less because it's Busta Rhymes. Let the man have his due. And trust and believe, folks, if you haven't seen it, you can definitely check it out on the internets. But he said some very, very important things as a mature artist in the culture. And it was just so gratifying to hear him talk about everything from his 6 children and the role that they have made on his life to the fact that he encouraged local artists and national artists to find love, to be at peace with one another. It was a type of speech that makes you feel happy that you grew up during hip hop era. And if you know it, and I know it, hip hop has gone through many iterations of whether it is good for the culture, whether it truly reflects who we are as a people, as it comes out of a space of us wanting to be heard. And, you know, with all of its craziness, with all of its madness, hip hop is certainly the culture of the people. It's not just the culture of one generation. It has become the culture of the whole world. It has gone from the streets of New York to being a multi-billion-dollar industry. Let me just say that again, folks. Multi-billion-dollar industry where they have produced some of the finest and some of the most provocative, some of the most profoundest artists, most profound, excuse me, I'm making up words, but most profound artists of our time and certainly of our generation. So it was such a warm and comforting feeling to see that Busta, who is a man who has put down, not just talked or who has put out major hits, who have done major collaborations with some of the other great artists, but here's a man who has been his authentic self for the past 30 years. And so it was a very, very important moment. I want to play this moment because, as we all know, Busta Rhymes, he's this big guy. He's a brother who shows that he has supreme confidence in who he is. He's comfortable in his own skin. But he showed a vulnerability last night that is truly, truly appreciated, especially to see among a black man of his stature. Take a look.
I'm going to wear it on my sleeve. I do want to cry.
There it is. He cried, folks. Busta Rhymes broke down and cried. That's where we are in the industry. That's where we are in the culture. That's where we are with the music. That a major, major artist got on stage, showed his vulnerability, talked about the love he has for his children, and he appreciated the support that his children, his 6 children, and more importantly, he showed the world that black men cry, that it is okay to cry. It is okay to cry. It was a very, very touching moment, to say the least. And I'm so happy that Busta brought it out there to the forefront. And it just makes the culture that much better, regardless of where you stand on how you like the music now versus how you liked it then, or you don't like the music now versus the thing is this, folks. It's hip hop. It's always going to be subjective. It's always going to have criticism. It's always going to have its problems. But at the end of the day, this is the culture that has empowered so many of us. This is the same culture that has taught us about everything from understanding the dynamics of the street to understanding supreme wisdom to all of the other things. This is the culture that continues to be the voice for a generation, and more importantly, for a people who have often been found to have no voice at all. So even though we may not show up on the picket lines, even though some people may not show up in the streets, you can rest assured that their voice is going to be heard on wax, that they're going to say something that is going to create some level of thought, that's going to create some change, and the music is there. The feeling is there. The passion is there. So I am a student. I'm a hip hop baby. I've been a part of this industry and this culture, and I love it. And that's why every project that I personally do, there has to be this ode to hip hop. So big shout out to hip hop, man. 50 years going strong. It's still a lot that this culture can do to create the change that we want to see in the world. It's still a lot that this culture can do to creating businesses and entrepreneurs. And it's still a lot that this culture can do to take our thinking to the next level. But we certainly want to stop to reflect on all that it already has done to bring us to this point. So big shout out to Busta Rhymes. Thank you for the celebration, BET. And more importantly, long live hip hop. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this evening or this afternoon. Make sure you do your due diligence and support us here at Black Star Network. Go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure that you download the app on all of your devices, because that download is free, folks. We're not charging you for that, but we just want you to support us. We want you to let your friends and family know. We want to make sure that people can subscribe to us. Make sure that you follow us on social media at Black Star Network, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and continue to support this digital media platform that is giving you news and information like no other. So go to blackstarnetwork.com today and show your love. Also follow me, yours truly, Farajii Muhammad. You can follow me on The Real Farajii on Instagram at Farajii on Twitter, and certainly follow me on Facebook at Farajii Muhammad. I love to continue to build with you. Big shout out to my online crew. If this is your first time being a part of the show, welcome to the show. If this is your 1,000th time for being a part of the show, thank you for holding it down while we were taking care of business here. But I thank you to my online culture crew. Y'all know who y'all are. Y'all continue to make this show everything that it is. So thank you. I cannot thank you enough for all your love and your support. Thank you. All right, enough for that. Stay tuned. Up next at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will be talking to you again with another fantastic live show tomorrow right here on The Culture, only here, exclusively here, the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Peace.